Hi, I'm Carol Martleen, and I'm the creator of CapturedImages.online, which is an e-commerce site on webador.com, and it is all about images that are shot within particular cities. Now, initially, as I started shooting in Boston, Savannah, Charleston, and Miami, I was looking to create images for my own meeting and event company. And my meeting and event company was centered on really CEO business and where they're doing just high-level meetings of very small-sized groups for decision making. Could be year-end, could be mid-year, whenever that happens. In cities where there's also great entertainment at the same time. So my collection is actually 96 images. There is one image, though, also along the Atlantic Ocean in New York City, and it's Ellis Island. And that's because that was shot a little bit later than the rest. That was shot in 2012, and it was in November when there were no leaves on the trees, and it was absolutely a magnificent shot of what is now the museum building to really tell the story of immigration to the United States through the port that was on Ellis Island between New Jersey and New York. Now, beyond that, in Boston, it has significant images in that. It really celebrates the food, the waterfront, the, buildings in Back Bay of significance. Obviously, the steeples that are right there where the Boston Marathon ends every year, and other buildings that represent the life in that area in the downtown neighborhood, South End, Beacon Hill, and Back Bay. I always celebrate food too, and I celebrate art, museums, things like that, galleries, and there's a few gallery shots in there that includes a phenomenal caterer serving, and also just the whole look of a event that was to feature Philippe Berteau's serigraphs. So beyond that, I tried to, when I was in Savannah and Charleston, really talk about the mystique of those areas. The voodoo, a lot of voodoo going on, especially in Savannah, and a lot of things like that, like you may remember from Midnight in the Garden and Good and Evil. Well, that in one way plays into this also, because the place where Clint Eastwood rented the entire mansion actually belonged to a friend of mine, Angela Tolley. And at that point, it wasn't named that. It had another name. And after he stayed there with his family, she renamed it Midnight Inn, which really made sense. After he was there, Robert Redford was there several years later when he was shooting Bagger Vance. And same thing, nobody had any idea where either one of them were staying because Angela is very private. And she actually was connected in the Hollywood scene too. And so she just made sure no one knew, and they came down the alley, pulled into the garage, went through the pool patio area, went into the back porch and into the house from the back, and no one had a clue where they were staying, which really gave them a lot of privacy. So that's, Savannah's very much by that. Also, Savannah, just like Charleston, is very, very much about graveyards and cemeteries. In Savannah, you have Bonaventure Cemetery, and just some beautiful, beautiful old monuments in there for important people and people's family. One that's in there is one that says Mother on it. And also on that, where I showed that image, I also tell the story of images and tell the story of the cities. And on that one, I listed everyone that's been buried in Bonaventure that was well known for something. They could have been a musician, they could have been a pianist, they could have been a singer, they could have been a writer, they could have been a photographer, and all the people that were really well known. They could have been filmmakers who have died, ones that a long time ago were buried in the old part of Bonaventure Cemetery. Now in Charleston, you see a very similar thing. There are images inside all the churches have graveyards. They called them all graveyards in Charleston, the ones that were in the historic district. And in those, there's one in particular of the Unitarian Church that they always say people have seen a woman in white at night going through that, just about as it's dusk time, and she's just a fading ghost. So when I shot Charleston, my friend who owned Midnight Inn in Savannah, she wore a white dress. It was her idea. She wore a long white dress and a white hat, and we photographed her. And then I made her a little bit transparent in that image so that she had the appearance of a ghost. She wasn't a real ghost, but so many people say they have had ghost sightings in that Unitarian Church graveyard. Now, there's something else about Charleston that no one's quite sure where it is, but Edgar Allan Poe wrote his beautiful poem called Annabel Lee. That poem, when he was young, long before he became a poet, he was in the army and he fell in love with Annabel. Her father was a very wealthy man and felt that he was not her status in life, and so he made sure he got him transferred up north so that he wouldn't be around her. And what happened was his daughter just pined and pined for it because she was so lovesick with him, as they both were, and she died. And her father was so enraged and blamed Edgar, who he knew by a different name, and he buried her supposedly in an unmarked grave, and so that Edgar could never figure out where she was. And that's sad, very sad story. But years later is when he wrote Annabel Lee, the poem, and one of his poems he's best known for. Also in Charleston, you have a lot of water. You have the harbor and you have the river that all come together. And then the river can take you out to the ocean, and that's probably by boat about 20 minutes. By car, it'd probably take about 10 minutes. Once you cross the Ravenel Bridge into Mount Pleasant, you can head out to both Folly Beach and also Sullivan's Island that way. And you have the plantations, of course, in both Savannah and Charleston. The majority of them are in Charleston, and they're still operating plantations where you could go there and dine on the porch of the mansion. You could travel around in a horse-drawn carriage and see everything. The dirt roads are still there, and as you go into any of those plantations, they all have the oak alley, where the live oak trees are leaning towards each other in the way they were planted, really, and that they hang over that gravel driveway, which is really, really common. You'll see all of these images in my collection. And then there's really just the stories of the ghosts and the goblins, and bottles that rattled in a particular bar and nobody knew what it was, and an inn downtown, a hotel, actually a small hotel, where people at night, a little girl would visit them in their rooms. That was a ghost. So that's what we have going on there. Then when you get down to Miami, it's very, very different scene. Miami at the time and all the time, the hotels down there are really Art Deco design, of the nicer ones, and it was just a beautiful time of architecture. But you have South Beach, so the majority of everything I photographed was on South Beach. One important thing that I included in this collection was a private shoot that I did. It was for Casa Casarina, which was the former Versace mansion. Now, that was actually had turned into an apartment building when Versace first saw Miami, and he just had to have it. It wasn't on the market. He was able to get it, have it go on the market. He was able to buy it. He was able to buy the property next door, so that he then could extend the outdoor areas of the home, by having that additional lot. And he did, and he built the most beautiful gazebo you could imagine. And he built the swimming pool perpendicular to it. He built a high wall on that far end of the property south. He built another part to the home to have more guest suites in a building he called the South Wing, which had 2 very large guest suites. The main home, he took it back to its original, and he might have combined a suite or 2 to create the master suite, which is actually on the front of the building. And today, that is a beautiful, beautiful high-end boutique hotel, and it's called Villa Casa Casarina, and they very much celebrate the memory of Versace and the beautiful things that he designed there. So many of the walls have murals on them that are permanent, that no one has ever changed. And some of the fabrics were there, but all the furniture was really removed by his family after his death. And it was 4 years later when they were willing to actually sell it. And that's when I photographed, was for the tech guru who bought it at that point. And I came in and did a shoot for him right before our wedding, that they needed some images to have, because they couldn't really ask the wedding photographer to do it once they arrived. And then I was asked back to actually shoot the property when it didn't have any of that paraphernalia there, and it was just in its beautiful natural state, which is what you'll see in this collection. So beyond that, Miami on its own is the Art Deco, and it is the food. Everything about Miami is dining out in different restaurants with very, very colorful food. So in southern Georgia, I had some too. I had one of the mansions of Jekyll Island, and I had a beautiful Victorian with a very peeling black gate. And it's so beautiful when gates aren't always painted in their wrought iron, and they're absolutely gorgeous and intricate. And that's just a really beautiful picture too. And then there's a ruin in St. Simon's of a home, and the only part that's left of it is the steps up and maybe a piece of a wall. And that's, ruins are still really beautiful in their own way. So that's kind of an idea of what's in the portfolio. Now, all the images are $195, except the Casa Casarina collection, which are 12 images, and the one image in New York, which is Ellis Island. And that is because all of those are really, really special and unique, and just shot perfectly, and very, very significant buildings that have a lot to do with the history of the United States, at least on that coast. So I have put them into a collection, and it is a e-commerce site. My website is called capturedImages.online, and it's actually up on the Webador site. I found that so easy to build within. My images are, as you see behind me, they're very large. They are 30 by 36, including the 4-inch border that's around every image. And they are printed on a really fine, smooth rag paper. And the colors are so brilliant because of that paper and because of the inks used by my printer. I've used this printer forever, since I've been a professional photographer, anytime I had to print something significant for a client. And today they're doing all the printing on this, so it's a very seamless process. Now, if you order 10 images or more, you'll receive a 20% discount on the purchase. And we've built the shipping price into each of the images. And if you are ordering multiple, obviously they're not going to charge the shipping on every one of those. They're going to charge, probably the normal $20. And then they're probably just going to go a little bit higher if you had maybe 10, 12 images or so. But they have very little weight in them. It might be that, it could be charged twice, but I can always let you know what that will be. But the important thing is these images are timeless. So for an architect, an interior designer, a real estate developer, as I'm focusing this particular one, you could use those in homes of size that have hallways. You could hang multiple images out of this collection, and it could be in restaurants that you're doing the architectural design for, an interior design. It could be in commercial buildings. It could be in offices. It could be in major buildings, in a hallway or in a gallery arena. And they would arrive to you in the border, but of course you choose whatever framing you want to put on them. So again, I'm Carol Martling. My website is called capturedImages.online, and my telephone number for you as architects, interior designers, real estate developers to reach out to me if you need to. Would love to speak with you and love to work with you and have you, buy my images from time to time as you need them for your projects. It's 843-530-4555, and my private website is Carol Martling, which is CarolMartlang .b as in boy, I as in ice cream @gmail.com. So carolmartling.bi@gmail.com, and you will find my site on the internet, of course, at capturedImages.online. And thank you very much for your time.